Unfortunately, this video is very opinion heavy, and I am legally obligated to say all my opinions are my own. However, facts are still facts. And at least I'm supporting this and not this. This is where I get outed as a Bernie fan. I'm going to go through Trump's inaugural speech and then Bernie's response to Trump's inaugural speech. But first, some epilogue of my own words. I had recently passed by a tweet that I don't remember by who, but it made the believable claim that Trump is moving fast since his election inauguration in order to overwhelm what can be pushed back just based on what our brains are capable of fighting back. I mean, obviously we're going to stop some things, but if he signs an overwhelming amount of decrees, there's a good chance things will slip through the cracks. Also, I'm sure you've heard the words dictatorship and oligarchy recently in news, so I'll define them real quick. A dictatorship is when one man has absolute power, with an implication that they'll make decisions with little or no concern for others. To be a self-serving and autocratic leader. And an oligarchy is when a select few people have total control over a country. This could mean the generations of career politicians we have, but the connotation behind oligarch implies that business elites run the government. And I'm sure I don't need to give you a lesson on why all that is relevant information. Trump, being a majorly successful CEO himself and allying with Elon Musk, the richest asshole in the United States, richest asshole in the world, as well as having Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, and Jeff Bezos, creator of Amazon.com, in attendance for his inauguration. Bernie Sanders also attended his inauguration, and the next day uploaded a video on his official YouTube channel responding to Trump's inaugural speech. I also listened to the speech, and my eyes got tired watching and waiting for him to say anything that wasn't garnered for an applause. About 3 minutes into the video linked below. And then a whole lot of building tie-ins from factual issues to agendas he wants to push. Such as claiming that our education system is teaching our citizens to notice issues with this country. Though I'd like to argue that the opposite is sort of true. That having an education, and in some cases lack thereof, is what's driving working class people like me to find the issues, sometimes from experience, and ponder them. Kind of hard to argue that American wages aren't too low when you're the guy with the low wages. Kind of hard to argue that our education system works when your options for post-high school are barely afford to live or put yourself into debt across 4 years to barely afford to live. Kind of hard to argue that our healthcare system works when you start swiping a credit card for medicine you need to live. That's my own, and just my own opinion, though. Around 9 minutes in, he claims that the date of his inauguration speech shall be known as Liberation Day, which comes off as a heavy-handed way to have his agenda immortalized, equally as heavy-handed that he said this on what was also Martin Luther King Day.
It's all about common sense.
And I could go on and on about everything I disagree with here, including a drill baby drill response to a national energy crisis that he just declared, as if making finite resources like coal and oil even more rare as we consume them will drive prices down, like he insinuates.
It's all about common sense.
We have better energy alternatives and have had them for a while. Just like how we have better public transportation options that have existed for a while. Just my opinions, though.
My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. Changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs.
This one's not half bad, as William McKinley was known to be a pacifist, hesitant to enter war, as he had seen the Civil War himself, but ended up being the puppet of American imperialism and gave in to crowd-pleasing, from what I could gather. This led to the American superpower.
And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
I actually like this part. And I found this hilarious. Elon is so happy to find out that as of 10 minutes ago,
we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
No one will be forced to buy an EV, which is frankly the only good reason to buy a Tesla. Seriously, even other EVs are more reliable. And that's frankly it for my review of the inaugural speech. Everything else he said didn't seem worth it to agree or disagree with, as I'd have to grasp at straws to make a compelling argument one way or the other, and that's a level of hate that isn't fair when discussing politics. All in all, he's fairly reasonable. But I'd like you to consider a quote I read recently. You have to ignore the reasonable arguments because their end goal is to be terrible, awful people. And I'd like for every one of you to watch the speech in full. But I know you won't, so I'll direct you to a much shorter video I'll be reviewing next. Bernie's response, linked below. And as I cannot make it clear enough, these are my opinions. And if you share them, that's your opinion.
I was at the Trump inauguration yesterday, and needless to say, I disagree with much of what he had to say. But what really struck me, however, is not what he said, which was not surprising given his rhetoric, but what he didn't say.
Honestly, I could play the entirety of Bernie's video, but that would be unfair and doesn't fully apply to the inaugural speech. Still a good watch for those self-educating like me.
Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had. The wealthiest 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. But Trump had nothing to say, not one word, about the growing gap between the very rich and everybody else. And maybe, just maybe, that's because he had those 3 people, the 3 wealthiest people in our country, sitting right behind them at his inauguration. And I should add that those 3 people, if you can believe it, and this really is unbelievable, saw their wealth increase by more than $233 billion since the November elections. How's that? $233 billion increase in wealth for the 3 wealthiest people.
Here's articles up on screen now and links in description. But about half of that is from Elon Musk alone. That's a lot of money for someone named after my armpit smell. A lot of what Bernie has to say is calling out what Trump didn't say and probably doesn't believe, like climate change.
During his inaugural speech, Trump did not have one word to say about how we're going to address the planetary crisis of climate change. Not one word from Trump about climate change, except of course, to make it clear that he intends to make this horrific situation even worse with drill, baby, drill. Just brilliant.
And then from timestamp 323 to 541, he makes a lot of statements about what we should be doing, which I frankly agree with wholeheartedly. But his method is just to tax the rich to get funding for these human rights projects, which, as being called out for my incorrect math on a previous video, isn't guaranteed to be enough to uplift everyone else. For those who don't follow me on TikTok, my math was off by 3 digits because I accidentally put a decimal where I should have put a comma. Though there is a sick enjoyment, I feel, thinking of taxing rich assholes for their dragon's hoard of wealth. Frankly, I'd like to find out just how much they have as liquid assets, or are they recklessly tying it all up in frivolous investments they'd have to give up to pay their fair share. I could do the math on that, though. I just don't have the time to do those calculations and check them over like I did in my earliest videos. Go check them out, and while you're down there, subscribe to the channel.
We must end a corrupt campaign finance system which allows a handful of billionaires to buy elections and move us rapidly into an oligarchic form of society.
And here's our word of the day. Oligarchy.
Bottom line, as we enter the new Trump presidency, we have got to remain focused. We cannot panic. No matter how many executive orders he signs, and no matter how many absurd statements he makes, our goal remains the same. We have got to educate, we have got to organize, we have got to put pressure on Congress to do the right things.
And with that, I have one last video to recommend that I won't be reviewing. One where Bernie grills Trump's budget director nominee for real plans to change things, and he, in turn, talks in circles around Bernie's questions. You know, the normal American political game. Check it out. As always, link down below. So is the subscribe button. And since I know most of you won't, here's my favorite part at the very end.
But will you maintain what we fought very hard to do what every other country does, have Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices with the industry?
No, Senator, I'm not here to get in front of the president on any of his policies other than to say that this has been a priority for him, and I think your question reflects that it's been a priority of his.
I've overextended my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As an advisor to Trump, your job should literally be to get in his way and give him advice. And also, that might have been a lie anyway. And again, I'm legally obligated to say all my opinions are my own. Toodaloo, and have a good day, y'all.